Well, so we are starting off with vectors. Lot of things to know in very short amount of time. ठीक है? थोड़ा concentrate करना. The first thing you need to know in vectors is that a quantity can be designated as vector only if it has magnitude, direction, and should be obeying the laws of vector addition. Only then you can call them vectors. Otherwise, no. Okay, magnitude or direction that a vector. Hobe na. Well, now the first thing is triangle rule. Triangle rule ki bole? It says that if you place the vectors in such a way that the point where the first vector ends, the second vector starts from the same point. That means the point where the first vector ends, if the second vector starts from the same point, then the formation which is formed, if you join the third side of the formation in the reverse order, means A and B are taken in the anti-clockwise order, but the third vector is taken in the clockwise order, then that will be called the resultant of A and B. That means mathematically you can write R equal to vector A plus. Remember, diagrammatically a vector is denoted by a straight line with an arrow, where the length of the straight line represents the magnitude of the vector and the arrow represents the direction. Okay? But when we are writing down, there are two ways of representing a vector. One is giving arrow, which is the general rule, which we do in writing. But when we are printing the question paper, there is another way of representing vector by giving bold letters. Bold letters. ठीक है? Bold letters माने होच्छे normal letter লেখা থাকবে পুরোটা, কিন্তু কয়েকটা letter you'll be find them to be in bold font. Bold font এ যদি থাকে তাহলে you need to assume that it is a vector quantity, not a scalar quantity. Keep that in mind. অনেক অঙ্কতে থাকবে তুমি দেখবে ক্যাপ অ্যারো কিছু দেওয়া নেই, ভাববে ওটা ভেক্টর নয়, স্কেলার, কিন্তু সেটা না, দেখবে ওটা বোল্ড ফন্টে দেওয়া আছে নাকি নরমাল ফন্টে দেওয়া আছে। Give me 1 minute. Theory. Second, the polygon rule. What is polygon rule? Triangle rule is applicable only for two vectors. But if there is more than two vectors, you have to apply polygon rule. What is the concept? Exactly same as triangle rule. Polygon rule, it says that if you represent all the given vectors in the font such that the point where the first vector ends, the second vector starts from the same point, then the closing side of the polygon will give you the resultant vector taken in the reverse order. ये सारा anti-clockwise order में प्लेस किया गया है, but see R is placed in the clockwise order. ठीक है? तो तुम बोलोगे कि सर क्या ये ट्रायंगल रूल भी ओबे करेगा? ऑब्वियसली ओबे करेगा। तो देखो ये A ये B है ना, सो ये वाला वेक्टर हो जाएगा A plus B, ये A plus B है, ये C है, तो ये हो जाएगा A plus B plus C, और फिर A plus B plus C है, ये D है, तो ये वाला हो जाएगा A plus B plus C plus D. So you can write R equal to vectorial A plus vector B plus vector C plus vector D. Remember, if the magnitudes of the vector are known, you cannot simply add their magnitude. You have to obey this rule to find out the resultant vector. Is that clear? Can you tell me what is the condition in which you can directly add the magnitude of vectors to get the resultant vector? If all the vectors are lying along the same direction. Same direction যদি থাকে, you can arithmetically add the vectors to get your answer for the resultant vector. Clear? Next is parallelogram rule. These two are useless. Only for diagrammatical representation you can use it. Parallelogram rule is the useful one. Parallelogram rule, what does it say? It says that if you represent the two vectors in the co-initial form, say this is vector A and this is vector B. Co-initial means starting from the same point. Then if you form a parallelogram with these two vectors as adjacent sides, the diagonal of the parallelogram, which is also coinitial with previous two vectors, gives you the result. Okay. So if this vector is this angle between A and B is alpha theta, then the magnitude of resultant R is given by root over of A square plus B square plus cos theta, and its angle with respect to any one of the known vector tan alpha is equal to, keep in mind, with respect to whatever vector you are finding out alpha, that remains alone. So this will be B sin theta by A plus, ऊपर साइन रहेगा नीचे कॉस रहेगा, लेकिन जिसके साथ साइन और कॉस एसोसिएटेड रहेगा वो वेक्टर के साथ हम लोग एंगल अल्फा मेजर नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम लोग एंगल अल्फा मेजर कर रहे हैं जो अलोन है उसके साथ. ठीक है. So this is the magnitude of the resultant vector and this is the direction. Alright. Next है component of a vector. What is component of a vector? नहीं. अच्छा, component of a vector क्या होता है? What is component of a vector? क्या बोलते आता हूँ? Shortcut. সবাই দুটো ডাইরেকশনই মনে আছে. আমি যদি একটা ডাইরেকশনে কম্পোনেন্ট চাই সেটা পাবো না আমি? এই ডাইরেকশনে কম্পোনেন্ট পেতে সময় এই ডাইরেকশনে ফোর্স ইফেক্ট. Very good. It is the effect of that vector along some other direction than that of its own. মানে ওর নিজের ডিরেকশন ছাড়া অন্য কোনো ডিরেকশনে যদি ওর এফেক্টটা বার করতে হয়, then we find out component of a vector. So if a force is applied along this direction and I want the effect of this force along the horizontal direction, then what do? I draw a perpendicular from the top of the vector on the horizontal line. If this angle is known to us as theta, then this is what we call the projection or component of the force. Component is also called what? Projection. Projection or component. Projection or component of a vector. So how do you find this out? It's very simple. If I take this as x, then কি হবে এই triangle থেকে is a right angle triangle. Cos theta will be what? Base by hypotenuse. Base টা হচ্ছে x আর hypotenuse টা হচ্ছে x. আচ্ছা বলে base টা হচ্ছে x আর hypotenuse টা হচ্ছে x. তাহলে you get x is equal to what? Right? So whenever you want to find out the component or effect of one vector along some other direction, you always find out the vector into cos theta. That's it. Remember, cos gives you the component of a vector along that direction. So whatever vector, whatever direction, you don't need to see. Just see what angle does it make with the direction. যত angle বানাবে তার cos. Straight away, nothing else. Right. সেটা বলবো. So if it is given that there are two vectors, well, so instead of a direction, if they give you one vector, say vector A is along this direction, say vector A is along this direction, and there is another vector B which is along this direction. You want to find out the component of vector B on A or the other way around, A on B. So you don't need to see the other vector, you just need to see what is the angle between the two vectors. Say the angle between the two vectors is theta, then the component of B on A will be B cos theta, and and the component of A on B will be A cos B. As simple as that. समझना है? So हम लोग को कुछ नहीं देखना है, सिर्फ किसका कंपोनेंट निकाल रहे हैं वो देखना है और एंगल कितना है वो देखना है। जब वही हम बोल रहे हैं कि अगर एक वेक्टर का कंपोनेंट निकालना है मुझे किसी भी डायरेक्शन में, तो अब मुझे दो चीज देखना है, एक वो वेक्टर और वो वेक्टर के साथ जो डायरेक्शन में हम लोग कंपोनेंट निकाल रहे हैं वो कितना एंगल है, सिर्फ उसका क्रॉस मल्टीप्लाई कर दो, और कुछ नहीं। Is that clear? Now what you all are caring about breaking a vector into two parts, that is called resolution of a vector. Okay? What is resolution of a vector? Resolution of a vector is breaking one vector up into two vectors such that those two vectors gives the same effect as that of one vector. Means if a vector is given to you as A and it makes an angle theta with the x-axis, then we find out the two components of A along x-axis and along y-axis. This method is called what? Resolution of a vector. Resolution of a vector. Resolution is breaking a vector up into its components. Tale, how much angle does it make with the x-axis? Theta. So what is the component of A along x-axis? Simple. A into cos theta. और कुछ देखने का जरूरत नहीं. Similarly, if I ask you what is the component of A along the y-axis, then how much angle does it sin? कहाँ से आ रहा है? Sin का theta? 90 cos. Oh अच्छा. सब लोग direct answer बता दें. The angle made by A with respect to y-axis is how much? 90 degree minus theta. ताले according to the rule, it should be A cos of 90 and that boils down to A sin. That is different. It boils down to A sin. That is different. But obviously, the actual thing is A cos of 90 degree minus theta. Clear? Others, what have said? So now look at this. Eliminate topics lo properly clear আছে নাও clear আছে ঠিক আছে আচ্ছা next যেটা আমাদের করতে হবে সেটা হচ্ছে unit vectors. So what are unit vectors? Unit vector কাকে বলে? Unit vectors are what? Whose magnitude is 1 and it is used specifically to find the direction. So that is why they are special and they are denoted with some special denotation, a hat or a cap. Okay. So A vector, the unit vector of A is given by vector A with a hat, and that is by definition vector A by magnitude of A. The unit vector of A is vector A divided by magnitude of A. Is that clear? Well, now there are some specific vectors to represent the direction along x-axis, y-axis and z-axis. I cap is a unit vector and it denotes along x-axis, z cap denotes along y-axis and k cap denotes along z-axis. We tend to use this I, j, k cap a lot in solving the numerical sum vectors. Why? Simply because it makes the solving very easy. Solving the 2D equation. Yes. So question is, what are we doing when the vectors are given in I, j, k form? You need to understand this very carefully. If a vector A is given as 2i plus 3j plus k. Say let's give a number 5. 2, 3, 4. 2i plus 3j plus 4. What does this mean? It means the vector A is the resultant of 3 different vectors. One is along x-axis, one is along y-axis, one is along z-axis. Or you can also visualize it as the vector A is broken up into 3 components along x-axis, along y-axis and along z-axis. Then this 2 is nothing but A along x-axis. This is component of A along y-axis, and this one is component of A along z-axis. Is that clear? Now, if the vector is given in IJK format and they ask you to find out the magnitude of this vector, then the magnitude of this vector is given by under root of 2 square plus 3 square plus 4 square. That is coefficient of I square plus coefficient of j square plus coefficient of k square. Is that clear? And the unit vector of A, you know by definition is vector A by magnitude of it. এটা কত আসছে তো বলতে আমার 5 root 2 आ रहा है 16 20 26 কি করে হচ্ছে 4 4 এ 16 আর 4 20 29 কি করে এটা আসছে root over of 29 আর root over of 29 ठीक है तो वो मल्टीप्लाई कर दीजिए 3 square plus 4 square 5 square now root over 29 তাহলে what will be this vector unit vector of A? It will be 2i plus 3j plus 4k जो यहाँ पर दिया हुआ है इसका वैल्यू यहाँ पर डाल दिया और मैग्नीट्यूड ऑफ A का वैल्यू नीचे डाल by root 29. So this is equal to 2 by root 29 I cap plus 3 by root 29 j cap plus 4 by root 29 k cap. Alright, can you tell me what does these coefficients represent? What? Right. এই ভেক্টরের ম্যাগনিটিউডটা 1 কিন্তু এই ইন্ডিভিজুয়াল কোএফিশিয়েন্টস গুলো কি রিপ্রেজেন্ট করে কি বলতে হবে পজিশন অফ i পজিশন অফ i नहीं तुम क्या बोल रहे हो तो it says that component of A along x axis component of B along माने A along y axis component of A along z axis. That's true, but थोड़ा सोचो कंपोनेंट को लोग कैसे निकालते हैं फॉर्मूला क्या है कंपोनेंट निकालने का कंपोनेंट कैसे निकालते हैं बोलो अभी मैं क्या सीखा लो एक वेक्टर का कंपोनेंट कैसे निकालते हैं डायरेक्शन में cos ऑफ द एंगल ना तो मान लो ये x एक्सिस है ये y एक्सिस है और z एक्सिस ऑब्वियसली बाहर होगा लेकिन आई कैन ड्रॉ 3D सो लेट्स कीप इट लाइक दिस z एक्सिस ठीक है तो अगर वेक्टर right it is cos of the angles so a vector x axis y axis z axis let us say the vector is this is the vector A in 3D space ঠিক আছে মানে 2D diagram না 3D space তাহলে if it makes an angle alpha with the x axis an angle beta with the y axis and an angle gamma with the z axis তাহলে what is the component of A along x axis A cos alpha what is the component of A along y axis A cos beta and along z axis gamma right so can I say that vector A is equal to A cos alpha I cap plus A cos beta j cap plus A cos gamma k cap right according to my definition it should be written like this. So when you find out vector A by magnitude of A for finding out the A cap, you get the same thing divided by the magnitude A. So A cancels off. So what is remaining? I'll show you. A cos alpha I cap, A cos beta j cap, A cos gamma k cap divided by what? The magnitude of A. So you know when the vector sign is not given on a letter, it means it represents the magnitude of that vector. So you can take A component cancel it off. क्या आंसर आएगा जल्दी बताओ? cos alpha I cap, cos beta, cos gamma I cap. Now compare. Because the vector A cap is this, and the vector A cap over here is. So, what does this thing represent? Right. This is cos alpha, this is cos gamma, and this is cos beta, and this is right here. So, if a vector is given in IJK form, and then they ask you what is the angle made by this vector with respect to x-axis, or what is the angle made by this vector with respect to y-axis, or with z-axis, then you do what? First, you find out the unit vector in the IJK form. Then, whatever the coefficient of I is, you can write alpha equal to cos inverse of that. That means the vector makes an angle of cos inverse of 2 by root 29 with respect to the x-axis. So, similarly, beta is equal to cos inverse of 3 by root 29, and gamma is equal to cos inverse of 4 by root 29. Is that clear? You got a sum. Question number 2, the very second question. Look at the very second question. কোনটা বোঝা যাচ্ছে না রে? বুঝতে পারছিস না? ক্লাসে আমি শুনলাম, বুঝতে পারছি না বললাম। ও সেটাই আমি জিজ্ঞেস করছি, মানে এটা আমি সেটা জিজ্ঞেস এক্ষুনি আমি শুনলাম, বুঝতে পারছি না, তার মানে কোনটা বুঝতে পারছি না সেটা আমি বলছি না কেন? Well, question number 2. Question number 2 কি বলছে? The angle theta between the vector p I plus j plus k and unit vector along the x-axis is. বোঝা গেছে? So what do you need to do? প্রথমে p vector এর unit vectorটা বার করতে হবে, তারপরে I cap এর যে কোএফিশিয়েন্টটা তার cos inverse করে দিলেই you get the angle made by vector A. Right? Clear? Yes or no? Okay, let's go for the next one. So this is all about the unit vectors. The last topic left is dot product and cross product, the most useful two rules. ঠিক আছে? Dot product and cross product. এটা হয়ে গেছে? Shall I run this? এটা হয়ে গেছে বা এটা হয়ে গেছে? हो गया? Yes or no? এটা হয়ে গেছে পুরোটা? Well, now two very important theories: the dot product and the cross product. Dot product key or cross product. When you multiply vectors, in few cases you end up into a scalar quantity, and in few cases you get the product as a vector quantity. So when you are getting a scalar quantity, you obey a different rule, and when you are getting a vector quantity, you obey a different rule. So what are the rules? First is called scalar product or dot product. It says that P is equal to A dot V. Remember, you should not put a cross between A and B. If you are putting a dot, means it represents dot product. Look at this. On the right hand side, I have given vector A, vector B. But what about the left hand side? The vector sign answer? That means the product is a scalar quantity. What is the rule to find out the value of P? The value of P is given by AB cos theta. Okay, so you can write A dot B is equal to AB cos theta. Okay? Now comes the IJK format. If A and B are given in IJK format, say 2i plus 3j plus 4k and b is given as I minus 5j plus 6k. If a and b are given in IJK format, then how do you find out a dot b? सिर्फ I का कोएफिशिएंट डॉट होगा, j का कोएफिशिएंट डॉट होगा, k का कोएफिशिएंट डॉट. Hence it will be 2 into 1 plus 3 into minus 5 plus 4 into 6. That's it. Whatever comes out, that is the answer. Why? The reason is I dot I माने similar unit vectors gives a dot product of 1, but dissimilar unit vectors gives a dot product of 0. Why? Because the angle between them is 90 degree, and dot product is cos 90 degree. Cos 90 degree will come out to be 0. बोले आपसे? Clear? क्या बोले आपसे? Well, now what are the applications of dot product? कुछ applications खूब काजे लगे dot product खूब बन जाएगा. First, whenever they ask you to find out the angle between two vectors, हमरा की use करो? Dot product use करो. ठीक है सर? To find angle between two vectors. Angle between two vectors. কি করে বার করব? এটা থেকে বার করব. কি করে? We can say cos theta equal to a dot b by AB. AB means magnitude of A into magnitude of B. ठीक है? So therefore, theta equal to what? Cos inverse of A dot B by AB. Alright? समझ में आया? So दोनों वेक्टर के बीच में एंगल निकालने बोलेंगे तो हम लोग ये यूज करें. और कहीं पर भी तुमको प्रूफ करने बोलेगा कि prove that the two vectors are orthogonal. That means perpendicular to each other. You can directly go for dot product. Why? Because if two vectors are perpendicular to each other, the dot product will give you cos 90 degree is 0. Keep that in mind. Second, to find the component of vector A along vector B. Why? Remember when finding out component, we use the cos theta. So since we can find out the value of cos theta from dot product, we can use this to find out the component also when they are given in IJK form. See, to find out the component of A along B, what do you do? It is A dot B cap. The dot product of A and B cap. Now, wonder why? Very simple. Look at this. A dot B equal to AB cos theta, right? Let's start from here. A dot B is AB cos theta. If I want to find out the component of A along B, I need to find out what A cos theta, right? তাহলে আমাকে যদি শুধু A cos theta দরকার হয়, I can bring the B on the left hand side. Thank you. তাহলে A cos theta কি হবে? I can bring the B on the left hand side. It will be A dot B by B, right? And you know B, vector B by magnitude of B is what? Unit vector of B, right? That is why A dot B. Now listen to me, one more thing, carefully, very carefully. Whenever they say component of vector A along vector B, and you find out vector A dot B cap, you get only the magnitude of the component. But if you see the options are given in IJK form, that means they are also representing the direction. In that case, you have to multiply this with B cap. Again B cap. Because B cap will give you the directional sense. IJK data. सिर्फ ये निकालेंगे तो स्केलर होगा, ये निकालेंगे तो वेक्टर कॉम्पोनेंट. ठीक है? So you can write this down. Scalar component is A dot B cap and vector component is A dot B cap whole into B cap. ठीक है, उल्टा मत कर देना, b डॉट a कैप मत कर देना, that will give you the component of b along a, उल्टा हो जाएगा, a along b ना हो उधर b along a होगा, it will be opposite. So these are the two most important applications of dot product. Right, এখানে আমি বলতে আসলাম যে they are commutative, মানে a dot b is equal to b dot a. Doesn't matter. A dot b करो तो b dot a करो, you get the same thing. It is always a b cos theta. Due to the a b cos theta. Clear? Now, one important thing. Property 4. If you do a dot a, what do you get? A dot a is क्या बोलो a square? क्या बोलो a square? A dot a is a square. a square কেন? তার কারণটা হচ্ছে a dot a হচ্ছে a into a into cos 0 डिग्री, क्योंकि दोनों सेम वेक्टर है तो दोनों के बीच में एंगल कितना होगा? 0 डिग्री होगा ना, because they are lying along the same direction. cos 0 का वैल्यू कितना होता है? So a dot a will always give you, अच्छा का पूछना will give you a square, because cos 0 का वैल्यू 1. What is a square? Means magnitude of a whole square. Is that clear? Well, anything else? Well, let's go for this vector product. Shall I drop this?
Yes.
Where is all one? Vector product or cross product. So in this case, what we have, the product that comes out is a vector quantity, not a scalar quantity. So this is a very important thing to understand. Here P is given by A cross P. You got the difference? Out here I am representing P with an arrow. Means P is a vector quantity. And what is the magnitude of this P? The rule is AB sin. Dot product में AB cos theta और cross product में AB sin. So you can write obviously that A cross B, the magnitude is AB sin. A cross B is AB sin. Here, question is, this is not enough. Why not enough? Because P is a, so only knowing the magnitude won't be enough. What is the direction of P? क्या बोलते हो? Last perpendicular to both the vectors. The cross product, remember the P which you can see out here. If the two vectors are given by vector A and vector B, this is vector A, this is vector B, then the vector P is directed along the direction of the marker. That means perpendicular to the plane in which A and B is present. Is that clear? Again, a query. It's alright, it's perpendicular. But whether the perpendicular is outward or inward, সেটা কি করে বুঝবো? সেটার জন্য we use the right hand thumb rule or the torque screw rule. ঠিক আছে? আমি bottle cap rule বানিয়েছিলাম একটা। তো bottle cap rule, bottle cap কি হয়? Bottle cap কোন দিকে টার্ন করলে ওপেন করে? তার মানে anti clockwise টার্ন করলে the cap comes out. So if we make the cross anti clockwise, we are doing A cross B, right? So A is crossed on B. That means it is what direction? Anti-clockwise. The anti-clockwise will be directed outside. Like a bottle cap, when you close it, open it, you rotate it anti-clockwise and it comes up, right? But if you rotate it clockwise, then it goes down. So in this case, if you rotate it clockwise, it will go inwards. The right hand thumb rule gives the same thing. If you grasp anti-clockwise direction, thumb will point outward, and if you grasp clockwise direction, thumb will point inwards. But I think Potts through is better to remember than the right hand. Yes. So write this down. P vector P is perpendicular to the plane of A and B. Perpendicular to the plane of A and B. This is giving us a three-dimensional sense. Three-dimensional sense technology. Yes. So vector P is perpendicular to the plane of A and B, but we don't know whether it's perpendicularly outward or inward. Write this down. If the cross is done in the anti-clockwise sense, then P will be directed out of the plane of the board. If the cross is done in the anti-clockwise direction, P will be directed out of the plane of the board. Plane of the vectors A and B. Plane of the vectors A and B. Yes. On the other hand, if the cross is done clockwise. If the cross is done clockwise, then the vector will be directed into the plane. Alright? Now see, to show this inside direction and outside direction in diagram, there is a rule, convention. The convention is, if you go anti-clockwise, which direction is directed? So outwards is denoted by a dot with a circle. The dot with a circle means directed out of the plane of the board. And clockwise means cross means going into the plane of the board. Yes, out of the plane will show you can show it with a dot, and into the plane you can show it with a cross circle. This circle is too important. Dot circle and cross circle. It means outwards. Dot circle means outwards. Cross circle means inward. Alright. So is cross product commutative? No. Yes or no? Can I say A cross B is equal to B cross A? Why not? Right. A cross B is directed outwards, right? Outwards. But if I do B cross A, it is directed. So if you want to rectify this, put a minus sign. Or you can obviously write that A cross B magnitude is equal to B cross A magnitude. But if you want to keep the directional sense intact, you can just put a minus sign. Because this vector and this vector, they are directed exactly in the opposite sense. Alright? This is property 1, property 3. What is the significance of cross product? Physical significance of cross product? If both A and B vector denotes distance or displacement, then the cross product gives the area of the parallelogram found by them. Okay? So to find out the area of a quadrilateral, you can use cross product. Area of quadrilateral. So obviously we mean parallelogram. And A or B it forms a adjacent sides of the parallelogram. So area of quadrilateral is equal to magnitude of A cross B. Whereas if two vectors A and B is given and you want to find out the area of this triangle, তাহলে কি করে find out করব? Area of triangle formed by A and B is equal to half of the magnitude of A cross B. You know why? Half of the magnitude of A cross B? Right. পুরোটা যদি parallelogram এর হয়, triangle is half of the area of the parallelogram. So you can just multiply a half and get it. Is that clear? And of course, when they ask you to find out a vector which is perpendicular to both the given vector, এরকম কোন একটা সামনে দিতে হবে, তার মানে we have to go for finding out the cross product. Okay. Now, if the vectors are given in ijk form, how do you find out the cross product? If the vector is given in ijk form, cross product আমরা কি করে বার করি? If A is equal to আমাদের আগে থেকে 2i plus 3j plus 4k আর B কি নিয়েছিলাম? এটা বলবে I minus 5j plus 6k নিয়েছিলাম, right? তাহলে what will be the value of A cross B? We use the determinant method. I cap, J cap, K cap. Then remember the order is important. If you are doing A cross B, you need to write A first and then B. And if you are doing B cross A, you need to write B first and then A. Order is important. In the Kilipo, A coefficients, 2, 3, 4 are B coefficients. 1, -5 and 6. Evaluating method is same as cross multiplication method. Remember cross multiplication method of solving linear equations. The same method. If you are evaluating I cap, close the I cap and I cap row and column and evaluate the determinant. So you know the determinant evaluation, right? Determinant evaluation আমরা জানি. So this will be 3 into 6 minus 5 into 4. But remember, determinant was our sign convention, plus minus plus. So second will be minus j cap. Close the rows and column. 2 into 6 minus 1 into 4. 2 into 6 minus 1 into 4. Need some more. K का close करेंगे तो 2 into minus 5 minus 1 into 3. So of course this will be 20 plus 20, 30 LDI. I cap, এখানে কত হবে 12 minus 4, এই হচ্ছে minus 8. J cap আর এখানে হবে minus 10 minus 30. You see the final answer is retaining I cap, J cap, K cap. Alright? So if you want to find out the dot product of any of the A or B with A cross B, we'll see it will always give you a 0. Right? এটার সঙ্গে এটা dot product করলেও 0 আসবে বা এটার সঙ্গে এটা dot product করলেও you'll get a 0, which proves that A cross B is perpendicular to both the vectors A and B. Yes? Is this clear? So this is all about the vectors. এবার আমাদের একটু অ্যাপ্লাই করে দেখতে হবে যে কি পাওয়া যাচ্ছে. Alright? প্রথম দিকে সামস গুলো খুবই ইজি আছে, ডিফিকাল্ট কিছু নেই, বাট এখানে সব ডিফারেন্ট টাইপস অফ সামস মোটামুটি কভার আপ করা আছে। আজ আমরা ক্লাসে কিছু সলভ করব না, ট্রাই দেম এট হোম, হোয়াটএভার ইউ হ্যাভ গট দ্য ক্লাস 11 কনসেপ্টস তার বেসিসে সামস গুলো ট্রাই করে মার্ক আউট দ্য ডাউটস। নেক্সট ক্লাস আমরা ক্লাসে এটা ডিসকাস করব, ঠিক আছে?